Hello, this is Joseph Kishore, the Socialist Equality Party's candidate for President of the United States.
And this is Norissa Cruz, the Vice Presidential candidate.
We're here in Los Angeles, California. We are giving a number of meetings this week throughout the state. First in Berkeley last night, and tonight in Los Angeles, and tomorrow in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
We are having these meetings under actually extraordinary conditions in this state and in Los Angeles itself.
The coronavirus, which has so far claimed the lives of 11 people in the United States, has also claimed its first victim in California, in Northern California. And these 11 lives join what is a global death toll of over 3,000 people. So what is...
There's been 10 deaths now in Washington state, just north of California. Of course, the city of Los Angeles just today declared a state of emergency as a result of the fact that someone at the Los Angeles International Airport was tested as positive for the coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, this entire virus and the way in which it's spreading is extremely dangerous for the billions throughout the world. The World Health Organization has actually said that unless extreme and aggressive measures are taken, 2/3 of the world's population could become infected.
Which would mean millions and millions of deaths. So this is a theme that we have been stressing at the meetings that we're having, that it exposes really the character of the whole social and political system in the United States. I mean, the criminal level of indifference on the part of the state, on the part of the ruling class. They've done nothing to prepare for what was an entirely predictable outbreak.
Absolutely, and what's so far we're hearing from Washington that the amount of funds to be put towards the virus is a little over $8 billion, which doesn't even match the funds that the Trump administration has pledged for his $11 billion border wall. I mean, it's really a drop in the bucket for what's necessary to meet this
for
crisis.
A global crisis. I mean, this is, one of the points we've been stressing is that the coronavirus, as with every major social problem, is a global problem, which requires a global solution. The International Committee of the Fourth International published a statement last week, which really outlined a program to combat this, which begins with the fact that it has to be globally coordinated, and there has to be a massive infusion of funds. I mean, it's extraordinary that people are having difficulty being tested. We've seen tweets of people who are reporting that they have symptoms of the coronavirus, and they have no idea where to go. They're trying to contact their doctors, or doctors are saying they don't know how to get the testing. I mean, it is an extraordinary situation. You have the fact that I think it's 70% of service workers, really the vast majority, have no paid sick leave. So they feel that they can't even take off work because they're sick. They still have to go to work, or they end up losing their income, already very low income.
Yeah. There's also, the question of who's really going to be made to pay the heaviest price for this virus. I mean, the world's elite, financial elite, have access to VIP healthcare, to their own doctors. They don't have to work or take public transportation. I mean, it's really the millions and billions of people throughout this planet who have little to no savings, no access to health care, who are really going to suffer the most. And actually, as well as the all of the nursing and healthcare providers who are on the front lines of the attacks by this virus, everything from medical students to residents, these staff are extremely worried about what's going to happen. And I think something like 40% of hospital staff say they have no idea how they would prepare for the crisis. There's been no preparation.
A criminal level of indifference. And the Socialist Equality Party calls on workers to demand an emergency program to address the impact of this crisis, to make available free and equal testing, health care for everyone, that everyone has to have the right to sick leave. I mean, basic requirements to address this. And it's not a question of $8 billion, but a massive infusion. And that means the ending of the massive spending on the military, the endless infusion. Well, the other issue is the fact that the Federal Reserve has just funneled billions and billions more dollars into the stock market. That's been the principal preoccupation of the American government, to ensure that the wealth of the financial aristocracy is not harmed by this horrible and deadly disease. That's been their response. The working class has to advance its own program, and we're raising that in relationship to the election campaign. The other development, of course, is the Super Tuesday results, which were yesterday, which saw a victory for former Vice President Joe Biden in most of the states. He now has a delegate lead over Sanders, and it's emerging now as very clearly a two-way race between Sanders and Biden.
Yeah, I mean, what the entire events have shown in the last few days, I mean, the pulling out of the race of Klobuchar, of Buttigieg right before Super Tuesday, the recent announcement of Bloomberg, all of
Bloomberg
these,
too, he dropped out of the race to support Biden.
The entire Democratic Party is really lining up behind the Biden campaign, doing everything that they can to prevent Sanders' nomination. And of course, it's not because they fear Sanders, the person. He's a long-time, well-known Democratic Party politician, but are really fearful of the aspirations that his campaign is whipping up amongst the working class and young people.
Yeah, and it has been an extraordinary operation over the past several days, the mobilization of the Democratic Party behind Biden. Also the media, the intelligence agencies. I mean, there was this real operation over the question of supposed Russian intervention, which is now intensifying. Russian intervention to stoke divisions, to sow divisions within the United States. Of course, this has been the line of the anti-Russia campaign waged by the Democrats for the past 3 years, but now it's being utilized ever more directly to target the growth of social and domestic opposition within the United States, and directed against the Sanders campaign. Of course, I'm sure it's true for your discussions with workers and students, but we encounter many workers and young people who are supporting the Sanders campaign. Certainly that was my experience yesterday at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and talking to some of the graduate students striking over cost of living adjustments, which we'll have an opportunity to, I'm sure, discuss. But this is coming up, the question of what does it say about the Sanders campaign, and what is our analysis of the Sanders campaign itself?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the main issues that is brought up by the demands of these graduate students at UC Santa Cruz is the fact that they are completely unable to afford the high costs of living throughout the state, and their struggle is really on the verge of being completely defeated unless the students reach out to the working class and prevent the isolation that the union, the UAW, is really trying to push to isolate and prevent the spread of their struggle past the campuses. And their demands for a cost of living adjustment are essentially universal. These are the issues of social inequality that face the working class.
And of course, this is a struggle against the Democratic Party. And if you consider, what is sort of revealed in the primary campaign so far in relationship to the Democratic Party and Sanders, I think sort of the more critical political question for a lot of, not just these students, but the working class young people as a whole, is the role of the Sanders campaign himself. Because his whole conception is that somehow the Democratic Party is going to be transformed into an instrument of social progress and reform. But this is the Democratic Party. This is how it's dealing with Sanders himself. And it really actually exposes the bankruptcy of that that perspective, that this party, a party of the Wall Street, the military intelligence agencies, privileged sections of the upper middle class, which, by the way, I think one of the elements of the Biden campaign now is a very, very direct appeal on the questions of race. This has been the framework of Democratic Party politics for so long, but this is very deliberately being promoted to undermine class questions, that the questions of race are going to be elevated, of course, gender, identity politics, the politics of privileged sections of the upper middle class, which are really being mobilized against the most right-wing candidate in the Democratic Party primaries, Joe Biden. But the question which comes up again and again in the meetings is really the question of the Democratic Party, the idea that this party can be reformed, and therefore the campaign of Bernie Sanders and what it represents. Of course, Sanders himself has been adapting to it continuously throughout the past several weeks.
Yeah, we, as the candidates of the Socialist Equality Party, we understand the support for the Sanders campaign, but are really trying, in our meetings and in our discussions and throughout our campaign, are really trying to explain that despite the aspirations of millions of young people and workers for free health care, the end of tuition and student loan debt, that none of these things can be achieved through the Democratic Party or through the Sanders campaign, which is fundamentally, people have to remember that in 2016, he threw his weight and full support behind the campaign of Hillary Clinton, who was the preferred candidate of Wall Street and the banks, receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars from J.P. Morgan and Chase speaking tours. It really sort of shows what the Sanders campaign really is about, which is capturing all of the left-leaning sentiment and desire for socialism and throwing it right back into the Democratic Party. So we're also here to warn young people, warn workers, that everything that is desired, that they want, cannot be achieved through the bourgeois politics of the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Well, and of course this is the theme of discussions with workers, and certainly when we're talking to graduate students on strike, which you referred to, what is involved in fighting to defend and advance the interests of the working class, the fight for livable income, the fight for decent and affordable housing, the fight against a rational, humane response, a socially driven response to the coronavirus, to global warming, to world war, to the growth of the far right. These are the issues that are confronting masses of workers and young people throughout California, throughout the United States, and around the world. And we're encountering a lot of support, a great deal of interest in the campaign. We had a very successful meeting, I thought, yesterday at UC Berkeley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very successful meeting. We're actually going to be speaking tonight at UC Los Angeles and tomorrow at San Diego, the San Diego Central Library downtown, and the tour will continue next week as well. So we hope that all of our supporters will come out and join us. Check out our website at socialism2020.org. And we encourage you to donate to our campaign.
Yeah, thank you, Norissa.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you.